Shut up, it is not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
If you a fat girl, 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 do your thing.
I get told a lot that I'm fat, and to that I say yes.
Wait, are you saying that doctors don't understand?
I know this is hard for people who have never been fat in their life to understand, but no. Doctors do not understand being fat. Part of this is due to the fact that largely fat people are not allowed in clinical trials, research studies, and we're not allowed to donate our body to science for doctors to understand fat people and their anatomy. And then we know from history that things that are taught in medical school can be wrong, or they only need to take, I think it's like one nutrition class to be a doctor, but then doctors want to counsel us about nutrition. So no, they don't understand it. And then they also perpetuate fat phobia because they're just a regular human living in our society.
Fuck Old Navy. Sorry, I'm in a mood today. If you don't know, Old Navy launched their body equality campaign, which is like all plus sizes in their stores, all for the same price as standard sizing. They've canceled that. They've canceled it. Less than a year later, they are removing plus sizes from over 70 stores, I think 72 stores. So they've cashed in on this body positivity, body equality movement. They had Adie Bryant be in all of these campaigns. I wonder what she has to say about all this. I haven't heard anything from her, but it's just truly disgusting. And as a fat woman, I will never, ever shop there again. Ever.
Good morning. I want to chat with you about something. This video talks about fat phobia, anti-fat bias. If you are not in the headspace for that, protect your mental health and just scroll on. So this morning, I had the opportunity to use one of my boundary phrases because I woke up to an email from someone saying, "Fatty, you are a fat fucking piece of shit." And my first thought was like, oh, what an odd thing to say to a stranger. Like, oh, I bet they're having a rough day that they would email me, a stranger on the internet, like take the time to look up my email and email me and to say that. I personally differentiate between fat phobia. I define that as like our individual experience with fatness in our bodies, and anti-fat bias, which is like the systemic problem, right? And I think Matt has both anti-fat bias and fat phobia happening.
Hi. My beautiful girlfriend and I just returned home from our trip to Maui. Like, just returned home, like, my hair's still wet from the shower, because everyone takes a shower after they get off a flight, right? But I wanted to share some thoughts about traveling in a fat body, because before I took the flights to Maui and back home to Seattle, I was looking for this sort of content on TikTok, like what it was like in a larger body and accommodations and whatnot. So hopefully this will be helpful for like one person. That would make me happy. But we flew to Maui from Seattle on Hawaiian Airlines because I have miles, and that's like what I prioritize my credit card spending, so that we don't have to pay for flights. We did fly Hawaiian one other time about a year and a half ago. That time we flew first class there just because we did the bid up option. We didn't pay for like full first class seats. We just got lucky and they picked our bid, I guess. And then we didn't want to pay for that on the way home, too. So we did regular seats on the way home, like coach or whatever. But I think the big takeaway from that was we weren't used to flying because it was like right after the pandemic and whatnot. So we like were kind of just anxious about flying in general, and my girlfriend found out that she needs to take Dramamine on every flight. But I was also in a significantly smaller body, so it was a little bit of a different experience for me. But on this flight, we were very nervous about the seats. We actually changed our seats multiple times leading up to the flight just because we were going back and forth on what we should do. And I think the big takeaway I have is we flew there and back on a Wednesday, and the flight was so empty. We had like rows and rows to ourselves. And so what we ended up doing was taking in a row of 4 in the middle, the 2 middle seats in that middle 4. So we each had a seat on either side of us. And that made it so much better. But still, there's the dreaded seatbelt extender question. We got better at this as time went on. And, when we got on the plane, we would just say, hey, can I have an extender or can we get 2? And they were really, really cool about it. So I would recommend Hawaiian for plus size people.
I'm just curious how me existing is glorifying obesity, but that guy is not? Do you think it's because he's thin?
I'm sorry, but ex-fat people are kind of the worst. Like, great for you. You lost weight. You did what you wanted to do for yourself, hopefully. Why do you have to bring other people down, though? I'm telling you right now, unlearning fat phobia will help you. We are all fat phobic to some degree, including myself. I find myself thinking things that I should not be thinking because society ingrained fat phobia so deeply that it's just normal and we don't blink an eye.
Who is fat enough to consider themselves fat? That's a question that I get asked a lot on TikTok anytime I discuss fatness, especially when discussing the fatness spectrum and privileges and disadvantages people have based on how small or large they are. Instead of answering the question for myself, I'm going to read you some excerpts from Who's Fat Enough to Be Fat, an essay by Aubrey Gordon, who you may know as Your Fat Friend, or through her podcast Maintenance Phase. Respond, I often ask a deceptively simple question. How do you know when someone else is fat? Where do you set the bar for fat in other people? When do you worry for the health of a passerby? When do you think he shouldn't be eating that or she shouldn't be wearing that? When do you imagine a piteous life for a stranger, certain that they cannot be loved, cannot be happy? How do you know they're fat? Do you decide based on their body mass index, the hasty calculation of weight over height? How do you know their BMI when you look at them? What weight makes someone overweight? What about obese? When does your acceptance turn to worry, worry to disgust, disgust to anger? Is it when their breathing is labored after physical activity? How much physical activity? How deep should their breath run? Do their faces need to flush? Is it based on how you feel when you see a fat person? Do you feel a pang of pity or a spark of rage? Do you imagine the sad sprawl of a short life ahead of her? Do you imagine isolation, bullying, hurt, harm? Do you believe he has tried to lose weight? Did he try hard enough? Do you feel the sharp pull to ask questions or make prescriptions? How do you know when you're fat? Is it when your weight rises by 10 pounds? 5? 1? Is it when your jeans cut into the skin at your waist? Is it when your partner dumps you and you're reminded of the fact of your body? Yes, I choose to believe the people who tell me they're fat. But when I look for my fat people, the community I call home, I think of the people who are united by experiences of widespread, inescapable exclusion. Not just people who have been called fat, as all of us have, but folks who are shut out from meeting their basic needs because of the simple fact of their size. Not just people who struggle to find clothing they like, but people who struggle to find clothing at all. Not just people who feel uncomfortable on buses or airplanes, but people who are publicly ridiculed for daring to board public transport at all. For my fat people, our size isn't just an internal worry, it's an inescapable external reality. We aren't held captive by our own perceptions, but by others' beliefs that we are immoral, unlovable, irredeemable. But that's one of many, many approaches to defining fatness. There are nearly as many definitions of fat as there are people in the world. I hope that gave you some things to stew on and maybe clarified my perspective a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions below.